Welcome back to the channel. Today, I bring you a heartwarming enemies to lovers story set in Seoul, South Korea, coffee and contracts. It's a tale of rivalry, passion, and unexpected love between Queensta, a bold Ghanaian cafe owner, and Minhyuk, her former university rival turned business threat. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss any of our storytelling journeys. Now let's get into it. Queensta leaned against the polished oak counter of her cafe, the rich aroma of roasted coffee beans wrapping around her like a familiar hug. The morning sun streamed through the wide glass windows, glinting off the delicate ceramic cups and the freshly baked pastries on display. She watched as a young couple laughed over their cappuccinos, and a group of expats quietly worked on laptops at the corner table. Her cafe, Miss Comfy, had become a little haven in the busy streets of Seoul, a place where warmth and comfort met creativity and culture. "Queensta, your espresso is perfect as always," her regular Mr. Han said with a smile as he took a sip and nodded appreciatively. Queensta grinned. "Thanks, Mr. Han. You're just saying that because you know I'm judging your latte art." He chuckled, and Queensta felt a pang of pride. This was her dream, a small space filled with laughter, conversation, and the intoxicating scent of coffee. But her world was about to be shaken. The bell above the door jingled, and in walked a tall, impeccably dressed man with sharp features and a commanding presence. Queensta's heart skipped a beat, though for all the wrong reasons. "Minhyuk." Her voice was tight, controlled, but the tension in the air was undeniable. "Queensta." He smiled, a polite yet predatory curve of his lips. "It's been a long time. 5 years, yes," she said, folding her arms. "Still the same arrogant Minhyuk I remember." He raised a brow, unoffended. "I prefer ambitious. And I see you're still running this little cafe with the same enthusiasm." Queensta's eyes narrowed. "What brings you here?" "I don't recall you ever being interested in coffee shops." He reached into his leather briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. "Actually, I am. I have business interests in this area. In fact, my company is opening a new franchise just across the street from your cafe." He laid the folder on the counter with a confident thud. "We have the proper licenses, permits, everything in order. I thought you should know." Queensta felt her stomach tighten. "Across the street?" She forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "That's ambitious of you." He leaned casually against the counter. "Ambitious, yes. And competitive. But you know me, I've always liked a good challenge." She gritted her teeth. "I've worked hard for this place, Minhyuk. 5 years of sweat and dedication. You can't just waltz in and expect everyone to forget that." He raised a hand, flipping open the folder to show the legal documents. "Actually, Queensta, according to these papers, your lease has clauses that could be interpreted to allow relocation if a larger franchise opens nearby. I'd advise you to consider your options carefully." Queensta snatched the folder from him, scanning the fine print. Her eyes flared. "You think I'm afraid of you? That just because you have a fancy suit and a big company, you can intimidate me? I know my rights, Minhyuk, and I'm not backing down." He studied her, an amused glint in his eyes. "You haven't changed a bit. Still fiery. Still confident. Still irritating." "Irritating?" She laughed bitterly. "You mean irresistible?" "Oh no, wait, that's not what you meant." He smirked. "Don't flatter yourself. I'm here on business, nothing else." Queensta slammed the folder back on the counter. "Business or not, I'm telling you. If you want a fight, you'll get one. My cafe stays. I built this with my hands, Minhyuk. I'm not letting anyone take it from me." He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "And yet, part of me can't help but admire that. You've always been stubborn, but maybe that's why you're still here." Queensta felt a shiver run down her spine. The old spark from their university days, the late-night debates, the constant teasing, the pranks they played on each other, came rushing back, mixed with a complicated heat she hadn't expected. She shook her head, trying to focus. "I don't know what games you're playing, Minhyuk," she said sharply, "but I suggest you take your franchise and your papers and leave. I have a business to run, and I won't let you, or anyone else, interfere." He straightened, his smirk widening. "You're still impossible. I kind of like that." Queensta's patience snapped. "I said leave." Minhyuk raised his hands, stepping back slowly. "All right, Queensta. I'll leave for now. But don't think this is the end. We'll be seeing each other soon." She watched him go, her heart pounding with a mix of anger and something else, something she refused to name. Once the door closed behind him, she let out a long breath and muttered to herself, "This is going to be war." Outside, Minhyuk paused on the sidewalk, watching her through the glass. He shook his head, a small smile tugging at his lips. Her fire, her confidence, the way she didn't bend even under pressure, it fascinated him. He had thought he left university rivalry behind, but seeing Queensta again stirred something deeper. Something he wasn't ready to admit, even to himself. Later that evening, when the shop quieted down, Queensta gathered her closest friends around one of the wooden tables. Rose, her Ghanaian roommate, leaned forward, already frowning. "So you're telling me," Rose said, tapping her long nails on the table, "that Minhyuk of all people, waltzed into your cafe waving legal papers like some prince of Seoul, and thinks he can scare you?" "That's exactly what I'm saying." Queensta pinched the bridge of her nose. "And the worst part is he's got permits. He's opening directly across the street." Her Korean friend, Jaiwoo, gasped. "Across the street? That's not competition, that's war." Rose leaned back. "Well, if it's war he wants, then it's war he'll get. But we need to be smart about this." Queensta raised an eyebrow. "Oh, now you sound like him. I've spent 5 years building this cafe. It's not just business, it's my life. He doesn't get to bulldoze me." Rose smirked. "Good. That's the Queensta I know. Now we'll need to review that lease. I know a lawyer who might help." Jaiwoo nodded eagerly. "And I can check the city's inspection schedule. If Minhyuk thinks he can open fast, we'll see how ready he really is." Queensta smiled at her friends, warmth swelling in her chest. "You two are the best. I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'd probably throw coffee at his face," Rose muttered, making them all laugh. But laughter didn't erase the gnawing anxiety. That night, Queensta sat alone in the cafe, flipping through her lease documents, her pen scribbling notes in the margins. Minhyuk's smug face haunted her thoughts, along with old memories she'd buried. His clever comebacks in class, the way he always beat her in debate, the time they'd studied together until dawn with nothing but coffee and instant noodles. She slammed the file shut. That was the past. The next day brought no relief. Queensta arrived at the city office for a scheduled inspection review, only to find Minhyuk already there, speaking to the inspector with his usual charm. He glanced over his shoulder when he noticed her and smirked. Well, look who's here. Following me now." Queensta shot him a glare. "Don't flatter yourself. I'm here for my own inspection, and I've been doing this for the past 5 years now." The inspector, caught in the middle, cleared his throat. "Ah, Miss Queensta, we'll review your cafe's documents shortly. Mr. Kong, your paperwork is nearly complete." "Of course it is," Minhyuk said smoothly. Then, lowering his voice, he added to her, "Try to keep up, Queensta." She clenched her jaw. "You always did talk too much." Their bickering drew amused glances from the inspector, who hurried them along before their sharp words turned into something else entirely. The encounters didn't stop there. Later that week, Queensta went to a local supplier to negotiate prices for new beans, only to find Minhyuk standing at the counter, already sealing a deal. "You've got to be kidding me," she muttered under her breath. He turned, his eyes lighting up with mischief. "Oh, shopping for the good stuff? Don't worry, I've already bought the best stock. Maybe I'll let you taste some when my cafe opens." Her lips parted in outrage. "Minhyuk, I swear if you—" But the supplier interrupted with a laugh. "You two sound like an old married couple." Queensta froze, her cheeks burning, while Minhyuk's smirk only deepened. "Married couple? You know. Never say that again." After saying this, she shoved past him, muttering, "You're insufferable." He leaned close enough for only her to hear. "And you still blush too easily." Her heart betrayed her with a quick flutter, but she walked out without looking back. That night, frustration boiled in her chest. She wanted to hate him, she really did. But beneath the annoyance, there was a confusing pull, something that reminded her of the boy she'd once studied with, the boy who'd stayed up with her until sunrise, teasing her but also encouraging her. And when she overheard, through Jaiwoo's connections, that Minhyuk's expansion wasn't just for pride, but to prove to his father that he could survive in the business world without his father's name or connections, her anger wavered. For a fleeting moment, she saw him not as a ruthless competitor, but as someone carrying burdens he didn't show. Still, she wasn't ready to soften. Not yet. The week ended with another encounter, this time outside her own cafe, where Minhyuk stood, hands in his pockets, watching her put up a new display sign. "Stalking me again?" she snapped, though her tone lacked true venom. "Maybe," he said with a small shrug. "Or maybe I just like the view." She blinked at him. "Excuse me?" "The view of your cafe," he added quickly, though the glint in his eyes betrayed something else. "Relax, Queensta. I didn't come to fight today." She eyed him warily. "Then why are you here?" Minhyuk hesitated for once, his voice quieter than usual. "I came to offer a truce. Temporary, of course. Her brows rose. A truce? Yes. I'll delay my franchise opening. In exchange, you work with me on a coffee event, a showcase. We both get exposure, and the city gets to see that we can compete fairly without tearing each other down. What do you say? Queensta stared at him, stunned. Work with Minhyuk? The idea felt ridiculous, and yet her heart gave a strange little leap at the thought. Why would I ever agree to that? She asked, folding her arms. He gave her a half-smile, softer than usual. Because deep down, you know I'm right. And because you'd rather face me across a table of coffee beans than across a courtroom. Silence stretched between them, charged and unsteady. Queensta finally exhaled, her tone sharp but resigned. Fine. One event. But if you try anything shady, Minhyuk, I'll make sure you regret it. Good, he said simply, his smile growing. I wouldn't expect anything less from you. She turned away before he could see the faint smile tugging at her lips. This was going to be dangerous. Very dangerous. The next morning, Queensta arrived at her cafe with grim determination. Minhyuk was already there, leaning casually against the counter, arms crossed, as if he owned the place. Good morning, Queensta, he said with a teasing lilt. Ready to make some magic happen? She glared at him. Magic? I was thinking more along the lines of hard work and coffee stains. He smirked. Ah, the Queensta I know. Fierce, sassy, and still impossible to intimidate. Flatter yourself, she muttered, though the small smile tugging at her lips betrayed her. They began the day by tasting beans for the event. Queensta placed small cups of coffee in front of Minhyuk, each brewed slightly differently. Try this one, she said, offering a cup of dark roast. Minhyuk lifted it, inhaling deeply. Strong, bold, a little bitter, but with a smooth finish. Interesting. You like it? She asked, trying to hide her pride. He nodded. I do. You've got a talent, Queensta. I can see why this cafe survived 5 years despite, well, me being a thorn in your side. She snorted. You're not a thorn. You're a full-on cactus. And yet, he leaned closer, eyes glinting, you're still fascinated by me. Do not. She stopped herself, shaking her head as he chuckled. Later that day, they decorated the cafe for the event. Minhyuk tried to place a vase on the counter, but it wobbled dangerously. Careful, Queensta warned. That's my grandmother's vase. Don't drop it, Mr. Businessman. I'll have you know, he said, straightening it carefully. I'm very good with delicate things. Unlike some people who spill coffee on important documents. Excuse me? She asked, raising an eyebrow. You know exactly what I mean, he replied smugly, handing her another cup of coffee to taste. Hours passed with shared laughter, accidental spills, and playful bickering. When a bag of beans tipped over, spilling dark grains across the floor, they both lunged to pick it up, hands brushing. They froze for a second before laughing awkwardly. You're hopeless, Queensta said, shaking her head. And yet, Minhyuk murmured, softer now, you make chaos look beautiful. Queensta bit back a smile, focusing on the beans, though her heart skipped at the rare compliment. As the week progressed, new challenges arose. The city inspector demanded additional safety checks before the event could proceed. Meanwhile, a rival franchise owner, sensing their collaboration, tried to sneak in with cheaper beans to sabotage the showcase. Queensta slammed her laptop shut, rubbing her temples. Why does it feel like the universe is against us? Minhyuk leaned over, scanning the emails on her screen. It's just business, Queensta. Nothing we can't handle together. Together? She echoed, startled. He shrugged. Yes, together. I'd rather face problems with you than alone. And believe me, I'm very good at handling problems. Queensta studied him, torn between annoyance and relief. Fine. But don't think this truce makes us friends. Not friends, he corrected with a grin. Partners. Temporary. Professional. With coffee and chaos. They worked late into the night, finalizing posters, testing the lighting, and adjusting the menu. During a break, Minhyuk leaned back in his chair, stretching, and watched Queensta meticulously arrange pastries. You know, he said quietly, I underestimated you. I thought you'd be all fire and fury, but you've got heart. And patience. I didn't expect that. Queensta's cheeks warmed. Flattery won't get you anywhere, Minhyuk. No, he asked, voice low. Not even a little? Not even a little, she replied firmly, though the corners of her mouth twitched. Finally, the day of the event arrived. The cafe buzzed with anticipation as locals, expats, and coffee enthusiasts filled the space. People whispered about the unlikely collaboration between the fiery Ghanaian owner and the poised Korean businessman. Minhyuk and Queensta moved seamlessly, their earlier banter replaced with quiet coordination and understanding. When the last guest left and the cafe was quiet again, Minhyuk approached Queensta, his tone softer than usual. Queensta, I have to say it. I'm genuinely impressed. You handled every problem, every challenge, and still kept this cafe alive. This event, it's a success because of you. Her heart fluttered at his words, warmth spreading through her chest. I thank you. I guess we make a good team, even if we don't like admitting it. He smirked faintly. Good team. I'll take it. But don't think this changes anything. Your fire still irritates me. And your arrogance still annoys me, she shot back, though her voice carried a smile. He studied her, his expression uncharacteristically vulnerable. Queensta, you're something else. I don't know if I like it or hate it. You don't have to decide, she replied softly, her eyes lingering on his. His smirk faded into something gentler. Maybe not. But I do know this. I respect you. More than I thought I would. And that scares me a little. Queensta swallowed, pulse quickening. Respect can be dangerous, she teased, though her voice wavered. He leaned back, giving her a look that made her heart race. Then consider me, dangerously respectful. For a long moment, silence hung between them, thick with unspoken words, old memories, and new possibilities. Both clung to the safety of rivalry, too afraid to name what was shifting between them. Queensta broke the tension with a small shake of her head. Well, Mr. Dangerous, I'm going to clean up. You can supervise if you like, but don't get any ideas. He laughed, the sound making her chest tighten. Ideas? Never. Just enjoying the view. She rolled her eyes, turning away, though her heart refused to settle. The day had been a success, but the real battle, the one between desire and pride, had only just begun. For weeks later, sunlight spilled across the polished floors of Miss Comfy, but Queensta barely noticed. She moved mechanically behind the counter, wiping down tables, her mind elsewhere. Snippets of customer chatter drifted toward her, each word twisting in her chest. Have you tried the new cafe across the street? Their latte is amazing, one customer whispered. The other nodded eagerly. Yeah, I went yesterday. The place is sleek, the baristas are professional. I wonder if it'll replace Queensta's in my routine. Queensta's hand froze mid-wipe. Replace my cafe? She forced herself to keep moving, arranging pastries with trembling fingers. Jaiwoo appeared beside her, concern in her eyes. Hey, are you okay? I'm fine, Queensta said quickly, though the shakiness in her voice betrayed her. Just busy. The doorbell chimed and Minhyuk stepped in. He was casually dressed and he was radiating quiet authority. He smiled politely at customers before his gaze found her. Morning, he said, tilting his head. Queensta stiffened. What are you doing here? I came with a proposal, he said smoothly, crossing the room with unhurried steps. I've been thinking. Your cafe has loyal customers, you've built something worth protecting, and honestly, I'd hate to see it struggle unnecessarily. What if we collaborate? Not a merger, a partnership. Both our cafes thriving, side by side. Her eyes widened. You want to help me? He nodded. Yes. I'll back your growth, marketing, supplies, expansion advice. In return, we coordinate events, specials, promotions. Win-win. And why? She asked suspiciously. Are you suddenly so generous? Minhyuk shrugged. Call it professional courtesy. Or maybe I've learned competition doesn't always have to be hostile. Queensta shook her head, half laughing. You're impossible. And yet, he said, eyes twinkling, you're considering it. The rest of the day blurred into negotiations. They visited suppliers, tested beans, and debated strategies. At one point, Minhyuk knocked over a bag of espresso beans, sending them spilling everywhere. I swear, Queensta said, scooping beans into her hands, you do this on purpose. I do not, he argued, crouching to help. It's a strategic test. Strategic? You're lucky I like you, she muttered, softer than she meant to. He froze, looking up with a grin. You like me? She swatted his shoulder lightly. Don't push it. By evening, they returned to the cafe, exhausted but strangely content. Sitting side by side, they sampled new blends, laughter slipping easily between them. You know, Minhyuk said quietly, stirring his cup, I didn't expect this. You handle pressure well, Queensta. I think I underestimated you. Heat crept into her cheeks. Flattery again? I should be suspicious. Not flattery, he said firmly. Honesty. Their eyes locked, the air between them charged. Queensta forced herself to look away. Well, I'm glad we're partners, I guess. But don't think this changes anything about me. Good, he murmured. I wouldn't want it to. Hours later, a debate over menu changes escalated. No, Minhyuk. Queensta argued, leaning across the counter. Adding caramel syrup to every coffee will ruin the balance. People come here for flavor, not sugar. Queensta, he countered, leaning in. You're overthinking it. A little sweetness could attract more customers. And cheapen everything I've built, she snapped, then froze. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. I care. About this cafe. About you and about everything. Silence fell. Minhyuk's eyes widened slightly, his composure cracking. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Queensta's heart hammered. She buried her face in her hands. I did not just. Queensta, Minhyuk said at last, his voice low and steady. It's okay. She peeked through her fingers, panic on her face. It's not okay. I shouldn't have said that. He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. No, you shouldn't have. But I'm glad you did. Her heart skipped. You're not angry? Angry? A faint smile tugged at his lips. Hardly. Surprised, yes. Confused, definitely. She swallowed hard, retreating to the other side of the counter. Perfect. Confused. Just what I wanted. Minhyuk watched her silently for a moment, then nodded. I should go. Early meeting tomorrow. You're leaving? Just like that. Her voice came out softer than she intended. He gave her a small, almost awkward smile. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night, Queensta. And with that, he left. Queensta stood alone in the dim light of the cafe, her pulse racing. She sank into a chair, gripping her mug tightly. Had she just ruined everything? Or finally said what needed to be said? She didn't know. All she knew was this. The rivalry had shifted into something far more dangerous. And for the first time, she feared she might lose more than just her pride. The next morning, Queensta unlocked Miss Comfy with trembling hands. She moved through her routine, but her mind wasn't on the coffee grinders or pastries. It was on Minhyuk, on the words she had blurted out last night, and the look in his eyes when silence stretched between them. She had expected anger, or worse, mockery. Instead, he had simply left, and the weight of what she had confessed clung to her chest like steam refusing to fade. By afternoon, the bell above the door jingled, and Queensta froze. Queensta. She looked up sharply. Minhyuk stood there, casually dressed, a leather portfolio in hand. His gaze softened when it met hers. Good afternoon, he said, stepping inside. Can we talk? Her throat went dry. About last night? He nodded once, firm and calm. Yes. About last night. Queensta braced herself, her fingers tightening around the counter. Go ahead. Minhyuk set the portfolio down and took a slow breath. I should have said this a long time ago, back at university, even before our cafes became rivals. I've always been drawn to you. I hid it under arrogance and competition, pretending I only wanted to win. But the truth is, I've admired you all along. Your fire, your care for people, the way you fight for what you believe in. Her breath hitched. You felt that way all this time? He nodded, taking a cautious step closer. Yes. I thought distance would protect me, but it never did. Not from you. Tears stung at the corners of her eyes. Minhyuk, I feel the same. I've always felt it. I just didn't know how to admit it without risking everything. His lips curved into a faint, almost disbelieving smile. Then we don't lose anything. Not anymore. We start over. Together. Before she could answer, he leaned forward, brushing his lips against hers. The kiss was hesitant at first, then steady, full of everything they had buried for years. Queensta's arms slipped around his neck, her heart pounding as if it had been waiting for this very moment. When they pulled back, both were laughing breathlessly. Wow, Queensta whispered, shaking her head. That was a lot. Overdue, Minhyuk replied with a grin. Very, very overdue. The weeks that followed carried a new rhythm. Their partnership, once fueled by rivalry, now grew through trust and laughter. Together they visited suppliers, redesigned menus, and planned events that blended her warmth with his precision. One morning, Minhyuk slid a cup across the counter. Try this caramel mocha. Queensta sipped, then wrinkled her nose. Too sweet. You're going soft. Soft, he said, feigning offense. I'll have you know I am sophisticated. She chuckled, leaning closer. Sophisticated, arrogant, charming enough to almost forgive. Almost? He asked, raising a brow. Almost, she teased, turning back to the register. Their combined efforts transformed Miss Comfy into a local favorite. Authentic yet polished, cozy yet modern. Customers came not just for the coffee, but for the undeniable energy between the two owners. One quiet afternoon, golden light filled the cafe as they sat side by side with steaming mugs. You know, Minhyuk said, glancing at her hand brushing his. I never thought running a cafe could feel like this. Not without you. Queensta smiled softly. We make a good team. In business, and maybe a little elsewhere. Elsewhere, he echoed with a smirk. She winked. You know. He laughed, but his eyes lingered on hers with a tenderness she couldn't mistake. 2 years later, the cafe bustled with life, and sunlight streamed through wide windows. Queensta, who is 6 months pregnant, moved carefully behind the counter, greeting customers with her familiar warmth. Queensta. Minhyuk strode in, mock scowling. You're supposed to be resting, not carrying trays. She rolled her eyes, smiling. I'm fine. Someone has to keep this place alive while you're stuck in meetings. He slid behind the counter and rested his hands on her shoulders. One of these days your stubbornness will give me gray hairs before our baby even arrives. She laughed, placing her hands over his. Then I guess we'll both have to grow together. Now come help with this order. No more complaints. Yes, ma'am, he said with a grin. Teamwork first. Together, they moved through the cafe, spilling sugar, laughing over crooked latte art, and sharing glances that spoke of everything they had built. The rivalry that once defined them had blossomed into love, partnership, and family.